Hi everyone, I'm so blessed and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to share with you some quick tips for fall container gardening. Fall container gardening can present several challenges, as you probably learned from the previous seasons. Hey, but that's not bad news, right? Because the more you garden, the more you learn about gardening, and the more knowledge and information you have to apply to your future gardening. One of the challenges is temper fluctuation. So during the fall growing season, you can have temperatures go up and down, just flip-flopping from warm days to cold days. Container plants are more vulnerable to these rapid changes in temperatures because the soil in the pots can quickly heat up or they can quickly cool down, and this makes them more vulnerable than if you're growing something in the ground. So basically what I'm saying is, as the temperatures fluctuate, so does the temperatures more quickly fluctuate in your container pots. That soil heats up quickly and it cools down quickly, more so than if you're just growing something in the ground. So I'm not going to give you a challenge or a problem without suggesting some type of solution. So what can you do as these temperatures start to fluctuate? Well, you might want to consider moving them to a spot where the temperatures can be more stable. That could be moving them into your garage, moving them into a greenhouse, or even moving them closer to a wall that might be able to retain some heat. You may also want to consider using row covers or frost cloths to kind of help protect them from the colder temperatures at night, because usually that's what we start to see. It starts to get, as the fall comes nearer and nearer, the temperatures start to drop first in the night time. So at night you can just add some additional protection to protect your plants from frost. If you're monitoring the weather conditions, the weather temperatures in your area, you may get a little bit of a heads up, and you can start to try to insulate those plants if you're going to continue to keep them outside. A couple of things you can do is you can wrap your pots or your containers in burlap. You can also wrap them in bubble wrap, or you can actually put your pots inside of a larger pot and insulate around that pot with straw or mulch or some other insulation. And that gives us a segue into the next challenge, which is the frost risk. So early frost can damage your plants, especially if you're growing cool season crops. Having them in containers makes it easier for you to move them indoors or to some type of sheltered area, but you still need to be vigilant about it. So it's still a risk. Some solutions might be to choose more frost tolerant plants for hardy plants, cool season plants like kale, spinach, and then flowers. You still need some pollinators, right? So pansies is a good choice also, because these can withstand frost better. So keep your eye on that fall weather forecast. Like I said, those temperatures will fluctuate, and they do so quickly. So you want to be able to act quickly in according to when the frost is predicted to hit. Water management is another challenge, right? So as the temperatures start to drop, just be mindful that your plants may not need as much water as they did in the previous growing season. So containers do dry out faster than garden beds, so you want to balancing that water is key, especially since fall rain is also unpredictable. Also, you have unpredictable temperatures, you have unpredictable rain for fall season, so you have to keep an eye on the soil conditions inside those containers. There are different tools out there that you can use to monitor your soil moisture, but you can also use your fingers. Stick your finger down in that soil grower a couple of inches and make sure that not just that top layer is dry, but you also want to go down a little bit deeper just to make sure that you're not going to overwater your plants, because the top could look completely dry, the top could look moist, but you want to go down at least a couple of inches to make sure that the soil is moist. Self-watering containers is another thing that I use also. This will ensure, if you're using self-watering containers, that you're not overwatering your plants and you're not letting them dry out quickly. I think I've mentioned this in previous videos, but the best option that we know of to date is to water in the morning, because this gives your plants and the soil opportunity to absorb some of that water before the cooler temperatures hit at night, so that you're not overwatering your plants and you decrease the chances of your plants getting some fungal issues. So if you can, try to water in the early hours of the morning and get the plant an opportunity to absorb the water that it needs to use. Another challenge is limited daylight. You know, as the fall season comes in, the days will get shorter, which can reduce the amount of sunlight that your plants are going to be receiving. Some of your plants may start to struggle in the beginning because they're not getting enough sunlight, at least not what they were used to, particularly those plants who require full sunlight. So keep that in mind as you're selecting the plants that you want to grow in the fall. So what's the solution? Well, I suggest that you, since you do have them in containers, you can move your plants around. So you move them to an area that gets more sunlight, so they can have the full exposure they need during the daylight hours. So the placement where you have your containers for your spring and summer season may not be the ideal spot for your fall growing. So you may have to position your containers in a different area, because where the sun does shine during those seasons is not likely to be where you will find your full exposure of sun during your fall season. So you may have to change your plants around. If you have plants that you're trying to protect by bringing them indoors, whether it's inside your living spaces or in your garage area or in a greenhouse, you still need to consider how much sunlight or exposure they're going to get. So if they're indoors, one of your solutions may be to just add some growing lights to extend the amount of daylight hours that your plants are experiencing. And this extra grow light situation can also help to boost the growth of your plants. Okay, another challenge is pests. So you may think, oh, cold weather's coming in, this might or should reduce the amount of pests that I have in my garden. No. No, fall can bring or even increase the amount of pests that you have in your garden, like aphids, caterpillars, and slugs are still going to want to be in your garden. So just because it's getting colder does not mean that you're going to reduce the amount of pests that you have in your garden. I mean, you may have a shift in the type of pests that you have in your garden, but you're definitely going to still need to monitor your plants for pests. So we're still going to continue to do our pest management, regular inspections. You're going to check your plants regularly for pests. The sooner you spot them, remember, the easier it is for you to kind of control the infestation. So you don't want to if you see pests in your garden, you don't want to wait weeks and weeks and weeks to try to find a solution. The earlier you start trying to combat that situation, the better off you'll be. And some natural remedies can be used, like organic pest control methods such as neem oil, insecticides. So the Macious Earth, I think, is a popular one I see that gardeners use here on this platform, and they use that to manage the common pests with hopes of not damaging their plants. So you also want to try to trap or remove pests. For example, slugs, I've seen people use beer traps, or they put copper tape. I don't think this one is as common. Using copper tape around the container to kind of deter them. Yeah, so there's a lot of organic remedies that you can use to kind of control or do pest management in your garden. I just want, the key here is don't think that because there's cold weather coming in that you're going to have less of a pest situation to manage, because yeah, moving it's across the board. It's across the board. Another challenge that may come about is your soil nutrition. I know it's easy to rip out plants and put in new plants, but you also need to think about the fact that you're reusing soil, or if you're reusing soil, that you need to put some more nutrition back in that container, because, or in that soil, because that is what your plants are feeding off. And after a long summer, a long spring, summer, growing seasons, your container soil may be depleted of those nutrition. So it's important for you to refresh or amend that soil by adding some organic fertilizers to give your fall plants a strong start. Some solutions can be to replace those top few inches of your soil with fresh potting mix. You can also add some slow release fertilizers to ensure that your fall plants are receiving nutrients gradually over time without the need for frequent feeding. And then, of course, you would implement, as we learned in the Beginner's Guide series for container gardeners, that you can start a periodic or scheduled feeding for your plants, and that's basically dependent on what type of plants you're growing. Okay, another challenge is wind. So not only do you have the challenge of frost, you have the challenges of fluctuating temperatures, but you also have other type of environmental things that happen during the fall season, and wind is another one of those challenges, as well as the unpredictable rain. Fall tends to be windier, and containers can be more likely to tip over, especially if you're using small or lightweight containers, which we usually try to use in the spring and the summer. And we try to use those lightweight containers because they're easier to move around if we need to move them around. But just know that that's an additional challenge in the fall season because of the weather conditions that may come with the fall growing season. So some things that you might try to implement is trying to stabilize your containers. For light or small containers, placing them in heavier pots. Just put them in another larger, heavier pot, or you can use bricks and stones to kind of weigh the containers down. You can move them to a sheltered area, position them against a wall, position them up against fences or other structures that can help to break that wind. You can also try to support your plants by using stakes and trellises to help support taller or more delicate plants that can be damaged by the wind. So those are just some of the primary challenges that I can think of for the fall growing season for container gardeners. Be careful, be constantly monitoring your plants in your containers. You want to make strategic plant choices. You also want to take advantage of the fact that your containers are portable and you can move them around and keep them safe from wind. And you can also move them around to make sure that they're getting the appropriate amount of sunlight exposure. You can take advantage of them being in containers. So these are just some of the solutions that we've discussed here, but definitely if you have some more solutions or suggestions to share with us here in the garden community on YouTube, please share them in the comment section, and continue, if you know of some better solutions, make your own videos and share with us, because we are here to learn from each other in this community. So that is all I have for you guys today, and I do thank you very much for watching the video. I know That's your precious time, and time is very valuable to everybody. So I really appreciate you taking the time to click on the video and to actually watch the video. And hopefully, if I think of some other solutions that you might benefit from for the fall season, I'll definitely create another video, and I'll see you here in the next video. Take care, guys, and thank you very much. Have a great day and happy gardening.